And we're in. We're live. It's off. It's all kicking off. We've got the fifth day of the first test between England and West Indies at Southampton 2020. It's been a test of ups and downs, of rigmaroles and stories and narratives and all of the rest of that juicy good stuff. And it's cricket. Cricket's back. It's lovely. Even the waiting for the duck pond to clear before we can finally get the stream started and going. That bit's nice too. My name's Jake, better known on the forums as How's That. Also with me is Dan.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, I know. Sharing his 15 minutes with us. We are so special.
Yeah, absolutely. I might even be able to extend it out today. It's been a while, though.
Absolutely joyous.
It's totally been a while.
Indeed. How much? So we were just talking about the fact that you've not been able to watch a lot of this test, but like, what do you make of the position? Did you expect it to be so close going into the fifth day?
I'm not surprised that it's this close, I suppose. I think that without the benefit of Joe Root in the top order, both batting lineups are fairly evenly matched, and the West Indies bowling lineup seems to have been doing quite well of late. Well, over the past couple of years. So I think in a game between two flawed batting lineups and two quite strong bowling attacks, there's probably been more runs scored than I thought there would have been. But yeah, I'm not overly surprised that it's quite close, to be fair.
My first feeling is that the home advantage would be the difference between the two sides, because they've both got good attacks. They've both got experienced bowlers and attacks with a fair bit of variety behind them, especially in the pace. They've both got very raw batting lineups, which, as you say, the missing Joe Root really compounds England's problem. They've got a highly unproven top four, albeit one with, in my opinion, a lot of potential, which is perhaps better than it has been in the last few years. But they resolutely gathered up all of their home advantage, England, and threw it in the bin because they didn't pick Stuart Broad or Chris Wokes.
Yes, that was part of my thinking as well, looking at the scorecard, that with the bowling attack that England's picked, it didn't seem like the one best suited to exploiting home conditions.
And not only home conditions, but the conditions that they had on the first day, when it was incredibly gloomy. It was very dark and overcast for all of the first 2 days, actually. There was a lot of rain interruptions, so there wasn't really much play on the first day, but there was still enough time for the West Indies opening seams to harass England's fairly green opening batsman. And those conditions very much remained for the second day anyway. But it seems like England decided their attack last week, didn't they? There was this talk that Broad had been dropped. They were going to play both Archer and Wood, who the main sort of hype behind the pair of them really is this idea of being different to a normal English seamer and taking the pitch out of the equation. But they didn't have to do that here. They didn't have to learn how to respond and back up a 400 plus first innings score with bowlers to try and take wickets against the run of play. They should have just had the run of play at the beginning and chosen to bowl with Broad and Wokes.
Yeah, I think England's somewhat blessed with options at the moment with their bowling attack, and as a result, they don't quite know what to do with them and quite how to structure it. I understand the desire, particularly with how Wood bowled in South Africa, of playing him whenever he's fit and available, and then resting him later in the series.
Which they almost certainly will do.
The logic of alternating between an Anderson and a Broad or something along those lines, but I just don't think that's the way to start your summer.
Yes, agree. They didn't necessarily have to pick both Broad and Wokes, for example, instead of Archer and Wood. They could have just picked one, and it would have been sensible. And if they'd have probably made the best of the conditions on day 1 and 2 and bowled first, then they could well have shot the West Indies out for 150, and this wouldn't even really be much of a game. Not that they might not have done.
Many different options.
But what has happened instead is it looked like England were finally getting over the lead that they'd conceded to the West Indies. Yesterday at about 5:30, they were about 250 for 3 or something, with Crawley putting together a good innings, Stokes going well. And then as soon as Stokes went out, in the last hour, they completely collapsed. And now we're in the situation that we're in at the moment as we watch Alzari Joseph bowl the first ball of the day to Mark Wood, who manages to pat it into the leg side and get off the mark for a single. They're 200... Oh, it's a leg by, I think, is it? Possibly. Anyway,
Possibly.
yeah, they're 280 odd for 8, only 170 ahead, which doesn't feel like enough.
Doesn't feel like quite enough. No, it feels like if these last couple of pairings can eke out 30 or 40 runs, it's defendable.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps them in the game, but you'd say it's certainly advantage West Indies.
Well, curiously, the odds at the start of the game, according to the source that I looked at anyway, had it precisely even, as another leg side delivery is directed backward of square, this time by Jofra Archer, and picks up another single. If you look at the odds, they had them precisely even. Both of them 11 to 10 or 11 to 8 or something like that. With the draw also a potential option, but I think we would need some considerable rain for a draw at this stage.
Yes, you'd say so. I was having this discussion with somebody the other day. It's quite remarkable how good a rivalry the England-West Indies one has turned out to be over the past probably 5 or 6 years or so. Every series they play seems to be relatively interesting, relatively close, and a lot of it just admittedly, much like the rest of international cricket at the moment, following home advantage. With I think one series each split away from home.
Right.
If my memory is correct, which it probably isn't. But it's been quite an enthralling battle between the two.
Yeah, you may have a point there. Alzari Joseph comes in for the fourth ball of his over. This one is outside off and dinked away off the back foot, somewhat awkwardly, by Mark Wood. He's still on 1. England 286 for 8. Got some people in the chat. That's nice. GC, who, due to avatar reasons, I'm inclined to believe is Bijed, but it might be Glenn Chappell.
Definitely Glenn Chappell.
Okay, good to know. Hi, Glenn. Nice to see you. Only just signed in, so I might have missed you saying it already. Do you think they put too much stock in the warm-up match with regards to selection decisions? No, not really, because if they'd have really gone on that straight away, then they would have picked Dan Lawrence, who I think made a pretty nice-looking 50-yard in that game, and nobody got 100, so given there were spaces in the top order, that probably seems the way to go. I think they've picked Crawley at 4 because they see him as somebody who's going to bat the top order for them long term, and they thought, well, Root's out, they may as well give him a go. And I don't think the warm-up game gave them much. It did tell us that Butler was playing because they made him captain of one team, but that was clearly decided on before the game.
Yes, I think they were quite confident on where they wanted to go ahead of time. It seemed, and I think they got their batting order right, all things considered. Possibly you could have gone a different way with the number 3 or number 4 option, but I think with everyone that they've given games recently, for a one-off match, it made sense just to bring Crawley in for it.
Yeah.
So I think they've got that fairly right. There's long-term question marks over quite a few of them, but yeah, I think for now, they've got the right people in there for this game, I think. Whether they're good enough is an entirely different question.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be Shannon Gabriel. He was excellent in the first innings and absolutely atrocious until the final hour of the game when he suddenly turned it on again yesterday. He's blown hot and cold, but when he's been good, he's been very, very good in this game.
Story of his career, really, I think.
Yeah. He has been much more consistent in, I think, the second half of his career than he was in the first. But I say that, he's only played 18 tests. Feels like he's been around for a while. Anyway, here he comes. First ball of the day from his end is going to be to Jofra Archer, and it's, again, prodded into the leg side, and they take a single. It's been the fact they've managed to rotate the strike a little. The West Indies aren't all over them. These two can bat a little bit. We've got some more comments in the chat. Tricia Clark says, I think it's Tricia. It might be Tricia. I don't know. Hello, how's that of Cricket Web? I think there's a non-zero chance that that's a spam bot. And Harsh says, at what point does Folks get a go ahead of Butler? Well, I would have picked him in this game. There was a lot of I want to say consistency, like in commentary, There was a lot of consensus, is the word I'm looking for, that that Butler was kind of on his last legs in South Africa and didn't really make any runs there. And given that England had a lot of promise from that series, a lot of young players moving forward, they might try and say that it's not that, oh, misfield, concedes another single. England 288 for 8. Sorry, Primrose. Tricia Clark comes back to point out that she is in fact Primrose on CrookieWeb, who I appreciate, and is not a spam bot. Man, I'm so good to our audience. She also says this is the first match she's watched since the 2015 World Cup final. She's missed a lot.
Yeah, can't blame a global pandemic for that one.
Gabriel resumes.
Yeah. Imagine trying to explain the past 4 years of cricket, or past 5 years of cricket.
I think I'd probably start with England winning the World Cup and probably leave everything else out. Cut away by Jofra Archer. Almost gets it past the backward point fielder, who manages to half stop it. He's restricted to a single. That looks pretty positive. I think these two are probably going to have to play their shots. There's no point in doing anything else.
So, yes. I don't think Mark Wood tends to try to hang around much from memory.
No, and he's a much better striker of the ball than anything else. So, he's got some power, he hits some sixes. May as well roll the dice, right? Jofra Archer has batted absolutely atrociously. He's like, I want to say like Tim Southey in the approach to batting, except while Tim Southey comes off maybe once a series, Jofra Archer is yet to come off at all. But he does have a bit of batting ability, as we've seen in 2020 cricket.
Yeah, you don't look at what he's done in Test cricket to date and think that's a guy who was averaging 26 in first class cricket.
Mm-hmm. But he has been consistently coming up in at like 8 or 9, so they obviously have some faith in him to do something.
Yeah.
He just hasn't yet.
And also more faith in him than some of the alternate batsmen.
Tricia points out that she is the noob American, a real one, which is nice, unlike the occasional fake ones we get that come over to troll us about baseball. And Hannah is here. Hello, Hannah. Lovely to see you.
The typical Tim Southey time at bat, .46 bowled. That's pretty accurate.
Often. We've just seen one jag away from Mark Wood. Coming in off the seam from Alzari Joseph. It's a lovely delivery. Obviously, Mark Wood is not good enough to edge that.
Yeah. Also, not quite in the right position to play it at all, to be fair. Jumping back to the Folkes Butler comment.
Oh, yeah.
After Folkes starting off quite well in his Test career with that, was it debut or first series ton or whatever it was?
I think it was debut. He got 70 odd against England. I think that would have been in about 2008. Gabriel's finish is over. It's 289 for 8.
Yeah, but from memory, Ben Folkes went back to county cricket and made precisely 0 runs for the season for his county season. And
sorry, I got mixed up because I was reading about Tim Southey again. Yes, 2018 in Sri Lanka, he got a ton on debut. Oh, shut up.
I was wondering why we were talking about 2008 70 odd against England. But yeah, went back to Surrey, made precisely no runs, and seemed to bat himself out of a Test spot, much like Matt Renshaw did after his promising career start.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things. It then makes it a tough road back when you've got the incumbency but lose it on domestic form. It feels a bit harsh, but at the same time, it did himself no favours there.
Well, the main reason it does no favours is because the reason why Chris Woakes is... See, I'm getting them mixed up now. Ben Folkes is supposed to be the answer is because he has a better first-class record than Butler, right? So it makes sense that if he's not performing in first class, then why are we picking him when we've got this? When we've got Jos Buttler, who's in any form of pajama cricket an absolute superstar, and shouldn't be. That's a significant thing, right? We're not talking about your Nick Knight or Graham Hick, who was kind of disappointing in the Test format, but he was also kind of good in ODIs. We're not talking about kind of good in ODIs. We're talking about one of the world's best players. And those kind of players, generally speaking, do not fail in tests.
Generally speaking, yes. They don't always reach their potential in tests, for sure, but you don't expect them to abjectly fail. It gives you enough of a sense that they're competent enough to play.
Drop through the slips.
Ooh.
Archer has a big angled bat. I want to call it a scythe, but that gives it more finesse than it probably deserves. And he's edged it between the slips, and it's gone to the left of the diving second slip. They've kind of got a wide second, or maybe even a third slip there. No, sorry, it's to the left of gully. My apologies. That's why there's a gap, and it's just gone past his outstretched hand. It would have been an amazing catch if he'd managed it, but it is.
It was a remarkable.
It's gone down. Archer's on to 12. England 293 for 8.
Joseph just too close to cut, but Archer going for it nonetheless.
Backs it up with a back foot defence because Archer wants to prove that he's being sensible there. Just have another swing at it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, at this point, a few swings at it to get the lead up to 200.
Mm-hmm.
No one in the dressing room would be too upset. But yeah, I certainly think there's a degree of trust that you put in players who prove themselves to be up to international standard, even if it's not quite the same format. Can't say I'm a big fan of selecting on the basis of one-day international form for completely different formats of the game.
Yeah.
But in a world where there's an increasing gap between the quality of first-class cricket and the quality of Test match cricket, the display of being capable at the international level is quite a powerful image if you don't feel like there's the depth there or that there's a good, genuine option. If you have to take a punt of a guy who averages 40 in first-class cricket that you're not completely sold on, or a guy who is a superstar in one-day cricket, I can see why they'd come down on the Buttler side.
Yep. And it's not like Buttler hasn't ever succeeded in Test matches, right? He had a really good 2018 summer when he first got back in the side. He actually had a pretty decent start before getting dropped in the 2015 Ashes. It's the working bits and pieces are there, and if it wasn't for them being Jos Buttler, and if it wasn't for folks being available, then a number 7 who averages 30 and sometimes plays pretty well, you'd kind of go with that most of the time, wouldn't you? Yeah. He's kind of a victim of his own success in that sense, but mostly a victim of the fact that Ben Foakes should probably be in the team. Barani suggests that the counterpoint is Bevan, presumably in my comment of you don't get one of the world's best players as a failure in tests. But I'd suggest that he's just kind of a victim of Australia's embarrassment of riches in the early 2000s and probably would have been a perfectly acceptable middle order bat anywhere else. Down the leg side. Running along towards the boundary. 4-4. Is that 4 wides, 4 byes? What is that going to be? I don't think he hit it.
It's a bit rough on your wicketkeeper if that's called byes. That has not come out well at all. That's right out of the side of the hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll take it. England will take it. What do they lead now? 183. Probably into the minimum defendable kind of region, isn't it? 183. You could see that being defended. Okay. I was actually spending my time when England were actually just getting into the lead yesterday, before they got themselves into the strong position that they later threw away. I found myself looking up the smallest defended Test match targets. Short ball hits Wood on the shoulder. He kind of ducked into it a little bit. It didn't look that quick. 84 miles an hour, so probably give him a bruise a little bit tomorrow.
Shrugs it off.
He got a little bit close to his wickets there. Do you know what the smallest defended target in Test cricket is? Or do you know the match? That's probably a better way of asking that question.
I don't know if it would be the smallest defended, but there was a Australia-South Africa game in the mid-90s where Australia got rolled for about 114 chasing something, wasn't it? I don't have a clue what the target was, but I know it wasn't far away.
Okay. The smallest defended target is 88.
88.
And
Okay.
England were all out for 77, chasing it. In a game where the Sporting Post published afterwards that this was the death of English cricket, and the bales will be cremated and the ashes taken to Australia.
Of course.
Anyway, that was a significant one. It's not what's happening here. England lead by 183. That was given as buys earlier, by the way. It's harsh on Shane Dowrich, but doesn't really matter. Gabriel's not quite had his line right this morning compared to the way he was, and that's another one down the leg side. Misses everything, no run. England 297 for 8.
Yeah, he is prone to just kind of lose his radar from time to time.
No ball as well.
Huge no ball that they're showing a replay of.
Yeah, but he was terrible yesterday morning when Burns and Sibley were batting. And Burns and Sibley, you can, if you've ever seen them bat together, then it's basically like a slightly angular Cook when you're facing Rory Burns. He doesn't look as classically orthodox as Cook, and Cook isn't particularly orthodox anyway, so you know what I'm saying there with how awkward he can look. But it's ultimately about he's going to leave it outside off stump for a week, and as soon as you drift onto his pads, he knocks 2 into the leg side, and that's how he makes his runs. So the fact that they gave him so many runs off his pads before he was out yesterday, even though he looked pretty ordinary, was a big reason why England were able to get back into this game. And then later on, in the evening session, Gabriel, as soon as Stokes was out and England was starting to try and play for tea and go back on the defensive again, Gabriel was quids in.
He certainly turns it on from time to time, but what comes in between can be quite questionable.
Mm-hmm.
It's the real benefit that this West Indies attack has, though, in that they can kind of carry him through those poor spells, because they've got 4 quicks plus Chase as a perfectly competent off spinner.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly competent bowler, for fuck's sake, I think is the proper term of address.
Right. He's like discount Moeen Ali, only he bats 5.
I think he's probably a better. He's a bit like Moeen Ali, except in terms of like how good he is. But everything about him is different. He's not a sort of high loopy wicket taking off spinner like Moeen Ali can be, and he certainly isn't the kind of left hand airy driving Moeen Ali as well with the bat. But he is about as good in both disciplines.
Yeah, stylistically completely different, but more in the sense of you pick him as your off spinner because he can bat, or you pick him as a batsman because he can bowl a bit of off spin.
Yeah, and he makes he balances this West Indies side very well. Like with him at 6 and Holder at 8, they've actually got a pretty decent means of picking their attack. And then all they have to actually do is find some batsmen who can average more than 30, but that's a work in progress for everyone at the moment.
Yeah. If they could find someone who could believably bat 5, so that Chase was playing that sort of batting all-rounder role, and you've got Holder playing the bowling all-rounder role, you essentially have 2 genuine all-rounders just unevenly split between your 6 and your 8.
Yeah,
with quite a good 7 in Dowrich as well.
Yeah, that part of the team is pretty solid. Yes. As are Gabriel and Roach down the order. Oh, Archer down the pitch, thwacks one through the covers. Savage, and smashes. Joseph
in the comments,
Holder actually
immediately looked dangerous.
He's been under some fire from Tino Best. Did you see this?
I did not.
Tino Best of him of the well known as being an orator has been laying into Jofra Archer for being picked in this game on Twitter, and Archer has responded. Which I'm surprised there's like I wouldn't want to have people like getting into Twitter spats in between days of a test match. You want to be able to do like I'm not shelter them exactly, but just like get them away from that mess.
Yeah,
England
it's
have got
generally best
300.
if you don't read your own criticism.
Lead by 187. England have got to 300.
There's certainly an irony of it coming from Tino Best, though.
Himself, primarily known in this country at least as being the victim of a memorable piece of sledging.
Despite then coming out like 10 years later and bashing 95 from number 10 or whatever it was.
I think it was from number 11. I think he had the highest score by a number 11 until Ashton Agar beat it the next year.
Yep.
Harsh joins us, immediately says Holder looks dangerous, and he was then belted for 4. So yeah, Holder returns once more. This one is short and sort of hooked, without any real power by Archer, and it dribbles down to deep backward square for a single. Archer is on to 17.
So I've just gone and looked up Tino's tweet.
Yeah.
And aside from, I suppose, the presentation of it, it's a fairly reasonable point that they've picked 2 90-mile-an-hour plus bowlers and left out Broad.
Yeah, neither of them bowled at 90 miles an hour, did they?
No.
It's a pretty slow pitch.
I thought I saw Wood up around there at some point, but
Jason Holder almost beams Mark Wood. I don't know if he's going to be no-bowled for that, but it was a big full toss, fairly not particularly quick, and it just Mark Wood does quite well to adjust and not do anything stupid with it. I think that was a slower ball gone wrong, as Barani points out in the comments.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on that because it came out at his normal pace. Like it was sort of 8 to 9 mile an hour, so it didn't seem like a slow ball from that aspect. But yeah, interesting. And not what you generally expect from Holder, who's remarkably accurate for the most part.
Jason Holder, I've realised, is the type of player that you say that you rate in order to make it sound like you know what you're talking about. Because, like, if you only watched the Sky commentary team or the 9 commentary team or your local equivalent, not in the West Indies, you probably wouldn't talk about Jason Holder all that much, even though he's one of the world's best players. So you can make yourself sound cleverer than an average commentary team by talking up Jason Holder, and this is what a lot of cricket webbers I've noticed have spent their time doing.
It's a good ploy.
It works really well.
And then the other thing is you can be the contrarian by refusing to talk up Jason Holder and consistently talking about how confounded you are about his success.
I'm thinking of doing this because that would then elevate me to a level of cool, 2 levels above Nazar Hussain on Sky.
Absolutely. Starfighter in the Cricket Web thread saying that we're about a minute and a half behind. We apologise for that one, but not a whole lot.
That doesn't surprise me at all. It's Cricket Web reacts. If it makes you feel any better, just imagine like a big obnoxious thumbnail with my stupid face on it, looking surprised.
That's with a great big explosion behind you for no apparent reason.
Exactly.
Nico Rosberg's YouTube channel turned cricket.
Archer gets off strike once more. He's up to 18 as he dobs another single into the leg side. He's been surprisingly pragmatic, Archer. I wouldn't call it like stoic or defensive or anything, because he's definitely had a few swings, but he's managed to collect some singles where they've been on offer, which has been positive. So probably his best innings in whites so far.
Yeah, and these are really valuable runs as well. These aren't downhill skiing runs. They're not lost caused runs.
Mm-hmm.
This is a valuable contribution to setting a defendable target.
Exactly. Like I said, we're probably not far off the minimum defendable target at the moment. We've gone from 170, which is not really defendable, to 190, which is just kind of maybe defendable, and then another 10, and it's starting to look pretty close, right? Another 15, 20, 30. England are probably edging into favourites. Here comes Gabriel. Oh, Wood backs away. Is he out? Yes, he's gone. He's taken that. Some bizarre thing. We said we would maybe engage the long handle. I'm not sure that was the best approach to anything.
Yeah, especially the way
he's backed away and tried to cut a ball that's going just over his middle stump, and feathered an edge through to Dowrich, and that's the first wicket of the day.
Look, I'm glad that it happened when it did, because I was about to say how these two had been batting quite responsibly and not taking too many risks. The
Yeah, me too.
Archer flash through gully aside, and then Mark Wood goes and does that.
Uh,
It was a very Tim Southey dismissal, only without the .46 that normally comes before it.
Stephen, are you allowed spoiling? I'd appreciate it if you didn't, unless you want this to be about what I'm seeing in the text rather than on the screen. Stephen Dobson is Stephen ZA, if I recall correctly.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
He made a comment about Funny de Villiers earlier on, so I'm going to assume that's the case.
Yes. 303 for 9, England, lead by 189. Jimmy Anderson is going to exist. I guess he will just try and stay there as long as Archer can try and get a few more shots away. That has to be presumably the plan.
Yep. I'd expect to see Archer trying to be a little more aggressive than he has been so far.
Mm-hmm. What I would like to see is James Anderson hitting a 50, but I expect that I may have to temper my expectations somewhat.
I mean, he's got 1,195 Test match runs and a best of 81.
Does he have the worst average of anyone with more than 1,000 runs? I think that's probably a relatively safe bet.
It would not be far off, that's for sure.
Don't know of anybody who would have played as many matches with a 9-ish kind of average. Glenn McGrath wouldn't have had 1,000 runs, I don't think. Why do you hate results test, Howe, suggests Barani. Anderson 50 means the game is drawn, not if he gets it in an hour. I just want to see a reverse sweep from Anderson. Is that too much to ask? Against a fast bowler.
Against a fast bowler, it could be interesting.
Absolutely. I want to see him scoop it for 6.
You are correct. James Anderson has the worst batting average of anyone with 1,000+ Test runs.
Is that by some distance, or are there some close calls?
He's the only man under 10. Waqar Younis is the next lowest with 10.20 for 1,010 runs.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy Anderson unleashes a lovely unfurling off drive towards his first ball that just sort of dots into the pitch and dribbles halfway down the wicket in front of him. He'd probably suggest it was a front foot defence. Gabriel 4 for 66. Deserves the 4, deserves the 66 as well.
Yep.
Probably been the best bowler in this game. Despite 2 sessions, probably, of iffy bowling. That one is fuller, and Anderson is able to keep it out.
Yeah, I think it's probably between him and Holder. Holder has looked remarkably dangerous all throughout, but at times seems to have fallen into the old Ben Hilfenhaus trap of bowling a fraction too short and looking unlucky when it's not really unlucky.
It's what in association football would be called a holding role, fairly ironically.
Yes.
And it might be just nominative determinism at work that makes him do that, because when he pitches it up, he's actually very good. If anybody in the chat wants to point out that I said ironically when I meant coincidentally, just go ahead and print that comment out and shove it up your bottom. Gabriel continues to finish his over. That one's down leg. And it evades the leg slip and goes for 4. Anderson is off the mark as he gets a fairly fluky boundary.
Yeah.
England 307 for 9 at the end of the over.
Yep, round the wicket aiming for that sort of dismissal, and Anderson kind of falls to the trap but gets away with it. Places it very nicely, whether intentionally or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure about that tactic to Anderson, to be fair. I think you just bowl full in at the stumps and wait.
Probably. But like I said, it wouldn't be the first wayward delivery from Shannon Gabriel. He's a curious character, and I'm intrigued by him. I'm going to keep an eye on him. It's a shame we don't get a full proper summer of some of these players. You know, I feel like you really need to when you play a 4 or 5 test series. Like you feel like you really get to know the opposition in a weird way. You know, especially in test matches. Full toss from Holder, bunted away for no run. Archer is not taking the single.
Interesting.
I mean, if he's not taking the single, you may as well give him the single, right?
Yeah, precisely.
I don't have any words against Jason Holder for that, but it might be a slight over-egging of Archer's abilities. Still, if he manages to hack away another 20, that'll be excellent. Lead
I think
is
dropping
193.
players back for Archer is a little bit excessive.
And that one's on the hips, and Archer pulls, goes away to the boundary. I don't think they're running. They do take the single this time. So he's just making it up as he goes along, really.
I would say if I was Archer batting down the other end from Jimmy Anderson, I'd probably back Anderson to kind of keep Gabriel out for a while, potentially longer than you would Holder.
If I were
Holder's
batting,
got the ability to somehow find a way.
If I were batting with Jimmy Anderson, I'd say he's much more likely to successfully survive the ball than I am. So I would happily give him all the balls in the over. Holder pushes one across Anderson, and he's the left-handed Anderson, of course, and that is missed. Plays and misses with the defensive prod.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends, doesn't it? Like if it was a proper batsman, then you'd try and do 5 and 1. Especially if they're still giving them the single off the 5th ball. But for Archer, may as well take what you can get. Another defensive prod is he's playing within the line of the ball, Anderson. I presume that's been sort of coached into him as a strategy at some point.
Yeah, I don't think there's a genuine plays and misses. I think it's not quite knowing if one's going to come back and just wanting to be careful. HB in the chat has said, I'm not sure about giving away singles to Archer and bowling at Anderson. I'd rather fancy getting Archer out more than Anderson, simply because Archer's more likely to play a big shot.
I'd agree with you, but I'm watching Anderson really out of his depth against Jason Holder here, and
it's
I think Anderson's pretty likely to get out at any moment, so we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, I think it's you bowl at whoever's in front of you and you don't give away runs.
At the same time, if Archer's not going to take the single, then you give it to him, right? Because there's absolutely no harm in putting someone on the boundary at that point. So, it's a bit of a chess game. Like, are we going to give him the single because he's not taking the single, in which case you've made the right decision? But if you give him the single and he takes it, you've kind of been had a little bit, haven't you?
A little bit. I'd be aiming for a little bit more balance because every man you put back on the fence is a man who's not in a catching position for if Archer does go for one. Like, you remove the incentive to try and get Archer to play a shot.
Well, the exception being square of the wicket, right? And because if he toe ends one, or it just slices off the bat and he hits it hard enough, then those guys can come in from square of the wicket into the no man's land and take the catch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I probably wouldn't have like a long off and a long on or something, but I'd have the deep cover there, just because if somebody's flailing the bat and you're bowling to try and get the edge, then that becomes a catching position.
Let's see what field they've put for Gabriel here.
Yeah, still giving him the single.
Yep.
It's only one slip.
I like the admittedly very deep short leg. I think that's a good move.
Is it a deep short leg or a short mid wicket?
Looks pretty square. It's like a short forward square leg.
There's a no ball from Gabriel. Lead pushes up to 195. I wonder if Honest Barani is suggesting that he's more likely to nick off because he's a minute and a half ahead of us where Jofra Archer has nicked off, but we shall see.
We're going to be very silly if we start disagreeing with people who are watching it live and it then happens.
I've made a career off looking silly. I say career. No one's paying me for this shit. If you want to join our Patreon. Shining Gabriel bowls hoiked away by Archer safely, and it lands on bounce 4.
That was not far away from a fielder, seemingly.
Indeed, and it would have been on the long on, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I was going to comment on that fielding position at the start of the over. It was right in the middle of that no man's land, which I don't necessarily hate, but I don't necessarily think it was the best option either.
4 runs. The target is 200. The lead is 199. Archer's up to 23. Again, I don't think there's much to suggest that this isn't his best innings in a Test match.
Yeah, he's played this quite well, genuinely quite well.
Here he comes again. Oh, he's shoving to off, and I think he's out. He's gone. Oh, he's gone for the review. He sort of shimmied across his stumps towards off. It was a short ball. It was he tried to I want to say hook, but it was more kind of push it on its way towards deep backward square for 4. He was given out, suggesting there was a noise. He's probably reviewing this just because it's the last wicket, and you might as well.
Yeah.
Actually, Gabriel might have bowled a no ball. No, Gabriel's fine. We don't need to have that at slow motion. It's close, but he does land with a bit of his boot behind the line. Short ball, I don't have noise. It kind of looks like he's hit that to me.
That's the slow motion replay from front on looks...
It looks like the ball changes direction, doesn't it?
Yep. Very, very premeditated.
Yeah, that kind of pointless review annoys me, to be honest.
Yeah, if you know you're out, you don't need to spend your reviews just because you've got them.
Well, at the same time, if by some miracle or other he's got it incorrect and actually I don't know, something else caused the noise or whatever, then and he doesn't review with nothing to lose, it's kind of he's going to look way, way more stupid. So it only makes sense from a game theory point of view that you do review that because there's nothing to lose. But it just, it's kind of stupid. The problem is not the decision to review it. The problem is the system that means that is the thing to do. Shining Gabriel has 5 wickets.
Yeah, good return from him. 5 wickets at an economy of 3.5. That's
in an innings where England did not bat that quickly for the vast majority of it. England were less than 3 and over comfortably during the whole thing. It's such a it was for a second innings in a low scoring game. I'm not the kind of guy who complains at 40s and 50s. They help, right? But then you can see the first 5 wickets are all producing runs. England got into a lead, they got into a position, and then nothing happened afterwards, with the exception of this 35 minutes this morning.
Yeah, these are 2 teams that are very good at getting starts, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. That's why the averages look like the way they are.
Yeah.
That said, Ben Stokes with 43 and 45 or something, and then 4 for 49 in between. I think that's about as much as you can expect of your all-rounder. You can't expect him to be the best batsman and bowler and captain and fielder and everything all the time. And there is a huge difference between getting out for 18 and getting out for 40, despite what some people would believe. Huge difference. Roach was a bit unlucky in this match, suggests Stephen Dobson. I think there's a great deal of truth to that. He was certainly the most economical bowler for the most part, but I don't really have any sympathy if he didn't get wickets against this England top order.
Yeah, I can't say I saw a huge amount of Roach bowling in this Test match, so I can't really comment. But I wonder if
it was notable how not fast he was as well. He was about 82 miles an hour for the majority of it.
Yeah, I don't think he's as quick as he once was. And I think this West Indies attack, in both Joseph and Roach, you've got 2 very samey bowlers. I don't know if that should affect either of them particularly, but it just strikes me as they're a little bit similar.
Indeed. So what do you think of 200 to win?
It's tough. It's always difficult to chase. The pitch hasn't been the easiest thing in the world to bat on.
Highest score of 318 in the first 3 innings.
I struggle to look at a target of 200 and say that it's not advantage West Indies, but I think it's pretty even.
Well, if we look...
I think 240 would have been comfortably England.
Yeah.
220 genuinely even. 200 slight advantage West Indies.
Okay. If we
I'm just making it up.
If we look at the odds, that agrees with you. And West Indies have come in from this morning for taking those 2 wickets, suggesting that the odds that I mentioned earlier, when it was bang even at the start of the day, probably expected a bit more out of Wood and Archer than was reasonable. But yeah, West Indies 8-11, England 13-10. Draw is presumably off the table at this point.
Yeah, unless there's a band of rain that no one's aware of somehow. You'd say there's going to be a result here.
You are. So looking at some comments in Cricket Web, we have Duffers Game On Boys, come on West Indies. There's more elephants have come on the West Indies. I guess, that's what you expect, isn't it? Starfighter says pitch has not misbehaved so far and just been slow. To which Flem responds sarcastically, I don't think the pitch is just slow. I don't think it's a flat wicket. We've had some balls keep low. We've had a couple of lifters, like the one that caused a minor injury to Zach Crawley, hit him on the elbow. There's been some unpredictable stuff going on as well. Not least when Holder bowls a waist-high full toss. There's been some stuff going on. And they were pointing out as well that for a lot of the first 2 innings, to England's left-handers, the West Indies were bowling around the wicket. So there's a fair bit there outside off for Dom Bess as well.
Yeah, I think this will be a big test for Dom Bess. Can he take advantage of a slightly wearing wicket? Like, it's never going to be completely worn. And it's a day less wear on it than you would have than a typical 5th day pitch. But can he take advantage of the footmarks that are there and play a really critical role in this 4th innings? Or is he just going to be another bowler in the 5-man attack?
Indeed. Would you open the bowling with him? Nah, it's not Sir Iron.
No. Absolutely not. It's not Taunton.
Stephen Dobson says best does his job. England have got a really good chance, and he showed a fair bit of promise in the first innings when the West Indies were getting away with it. Before Stokes came back with that proper spell, Best was pretty much the only thing keeping us in the game. Him and Anderson, anyway.
Yeah, I do like Best and I do rate Best. I question whether he is, particularly currently, whether he is genuine Test class bowler or kind of a good county off spinner with potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be nice for him to be a genuine Test class off spinner here. But I'm not quite sure he's there yet. His fundamentals are good. He certainly plays a role. But it'll be nice to see if he can go beyond being a role player, I suppose.
Bryony says that Windies need to sweep him. Don't think that's probably true. Depends what length he bowls, I guess. If he starts dragging them down, they don't need to sweep him. Hope will be crucial against Best, I think. I'm not sure if he's referring to the Windies batsman or if he's just saying that they need to believe in themselves.
I think it could be both, really. I think HB is referring to the batsman Hope, but I
like to think he's referring to positive mental energy.
I think positive mental energy will go a long way in this chain.
And
Stephen,
Stephen,
how many test class spinners in the world? Quite right.
I think he makes a good point. How many spin bowlers at the moment are really established since Rangana Harath retired in the end of 2018? We've got obviously the two in India, Ashwin and Jadeja. Nathan Lyon and Keshav Maharaj.
He's fallen off a bit of a cliff recently, seemingly.
I don't know what has he done in the last. He took some wickets against England. He wasn't amazing, but he was all right.
Yeah. He had a really good start to his career, and he's faded a little bit to kind of just being a test spinner. Like, I wouldn't go out and call him test class, but I wouldn't say he's actively bad or anything.
What is test class according to you? Because I'm not sure how you're using this word.
Well, for me, I'm probably using this more in the way that Stephen's talking about it, in the sense of quite good at test level, where there definitely aren't many in the world. But I think I tend to use test classes in solid at home at test level, in which case, yeah, Maharaj would count.
Yeah. Maharaj was kind of dropped unnecessarily, according to Stephen. I remember him being. Well, I don't know if you're talking before or after the England series, but I remember him being dropped in order to play all the seamers, which is just the worst test match tactic.
Yep.
I don't know if he was unnecessarily dropped before then. My stream is sticking at the moment, so I'm just refreshing the page. As we see, Anderson with his lockdown hair all warming up.
Yep.
So we have a list of established test match spinners, and I think at least two of these are not really counting. So Yasir, Lyon, Ash and Jadeja, like we said. Someone I've never heard of. Embuldenia?
Embuldenia, or whatever his name is. I should be good at trying names, but I'm not. I'm not a huge fan of him yet.
Well, anyway, at any rate, certainly not established long-term test off spinner is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then he also includes Roston Chase, who I don't really think he's that much cop. Like, he's a decent support to a pace-focused attack, but he's not the main guy here.
Absolutely.
Then we've got Yasir Shah. I didn't know if he was still playing. If he's still playing, then yes, I can see that he is one.
Yep, he is still around.
Anyway, in this innings, Anderson bowls outside of off, gets a little bit of movement away, and it's left alone by Craig Brathwaite.
I think the interesting one is discounting the benefits of incumbency that Bess currently has, and discounting the need for the spinner to bat at 8 because the tail isn't that much at the moment. Do you take Bess or Leach? Who's the top spinner?
Well, Bess seems to be the incumbent at the moment as Anderson gets second delivery to swing, and that is no run. I see a lot of the reasons why people like Jack Leach a lot, but I think he. I remember in Sri Lanka where we won in 2018, he was taking a lot of wickets, and he still wasn't taking as many wickets as Moeen Ali. So, like, kind of when things have been in their favour, he hasn't really starred, even though things being in his favour tends to be what he's made his name on. And I didn't think he did anything particularly brilliant in the Ashes either. Like, I wouldn't have any problem with him being picked ahead of Dom Bess, but they have invested quite a bit in Dom Bess over the last 18 months, and I'd quite like to see that be played out properly.
Yeah, because from memory, Bess only came in for the South African series because Leach was ill and then potentially got coronavirus and then potentially got something else and basically spent that entire winter unable to play.
Yeah.
But prior to that was comfortably the number one and hadn't really seemed to be under much pressure to the point that Bess wasn't even getting a county games aside from when they turned Taunton to complete dust bowls and got points penalties.
Brathwaite almost edges one, but changes his mind at the last minute and leaves it. Anderson is bowling just as quickly as Kemar Roach, while getting the ball to move considerably more.
In fairness, he was bowling with a new ball at the moment compared to the last Roach.
Don't care, just saying. Winston is a 0 for 0 after 4 balls. Oh, Come on, Jimmy. We have defended off the back foot. No run.
HB, I thought Anderson was bowling comfortably quicker. That's a little harsh.
We did get a little bit of sub-80 from Roach during this game, but I don't think the majority of his deliveries have been around there. It's mostly been around 81, 82. See some camera shots of Jofra Archer looking a little bit lost as he looks around. Not entirely sure where he's meant to be fielding, apparently. And here we go, end of the over, left alone. Anderson with a pretty disciplined line, both sides not really giving in that time, maiden over.
Yep, some promising signs at the start.
Yeah, liking it. Is it going to be Archer at the other end? Yes, it is.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to give your cap to the umpire anymore. Did you know this?
That's an interesting way of stopping the spread of a virus.
Yeah, my impression was that they're all they've all been quarantined together in the biosecure environment. So handing a cap to somebody who you've been bowling next to for a considerable amount of time shouldn't be too much of a problem. But I guess they can. If it's a harmless thing to do, then they're going to strike it up as a new rule. Also, I absolutely hated holding on to bowler's shit when I was umpiring. It's really annoying. Archer comes in around the wicket. He gets a full ball. He appeals.
That is a speculative appeal.
Definitely pitched outside leg, so it's a curious way of doing that. But it looks like Campbell is off the mark straight away. They're probably going to be leg buys. Sorry. The DRS timer is going up. I think this would be a foolish review because it clearly pitched outside leg.
Incredibly poor review if they go for it.
Unless it was like a genuine full toss that hit him on the full, and I misread that completely. It has gone for leg buys, but it is the pitching outside leg that will have done for that, I think.
So our researcher in the comments, Glenn, has...
Oh, it was actually pretty full,
It's pretty full. I don't think you review it. So a researcher in the comments, Leach took the same amount of wickets as Moeen in that Sri Lanka tour.
At a slightly lower average.
I feel like any of our spin options are as good a choice as the others right now.
I genuinely agree. That is a little bit slower from Archie. He's trying to bring out a few tricks straight away, perhaps whether unexpected. And here we see that ball pitching outside leg.
Pitching outside leg.
I was worried, when I saw the replay and I saw just how much of a Yorker it was, but not out. 2 for none. Neither batsmen have scored any runs, just a couple of leg buys.
I feel like it's almost a rule of Test match cricket that your first couple of runs should always be leg buys. If you're not doing it, something's gone wrong. It seems like more innings than not.
Yeah, if you're an opening batsman facing the first over. Yeah, if you're an opening batsman facing the first over and you just ping it through the covers for 4, then just get your head straight, right? Just kick it.
Take one off the right pad down to find leg for 4.
Still a lot of zeros on the screen. Brothwaite 0, Campbell 0, Archer 0 for 0. Here he comes for the 4th ball, 3rd ball of the over, whatever. Outside off, left alone, no run. Why do we hate Sehwag? I don't hate Sehwag. I particularly enjoy it when he gets king pairs in the Test match where everybody's waiting for him to suddenly fly in and rescue India in a Test series. Those are my favourite Sehwag memories. Archer resumes. That one is a little bit fuller, a little bit more dangerous, but it gets past the outside edge of the forward defence. No run. That's the length that Archer's got a ball, right?
Yeah, that's a much better length. So the parts of this Test match that I have caught, and it wasn't a huge amount of it. It seems like Archer was kind of bowling 82, 83 mile an hour, just short of a length, like the unlucky balls, and just kind of didn't quite know what the plan was.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Edged, fallen short of Don Bess at Gully.
And as I say that, he bowls an 87 mile an hour in between ball that takes the shoulder and almost takes a wicket. So I will withdraw my criticism, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, he's new ball bowling. He's trying to get a bit of movement. It's very close, but it would have been an amazing take even if he'd quite got to it. Just loops in towards just in front of Gully, and he does very well to stop it actually, because it bounces in front of him while he's diving, and he manages to get a hand to it and stops it from conceding. That's the end of the second over. No runs scored off the bat. Winners West Indies 2-0. Anderson is going to continue in his do-rag. That one is full and into the pads. Shapes onto off stump and it's defended away.
Spiking the thread, love the umpire waiting until the timer to say whether it's a leg bye. First time I recall this happening. I wonder if that's interesting, actually. How much information should an umpire give about their decision before you have the opportunity to review it?
I think nothing. Well, it's weird, isn't it, actually, now that I think about it, because you've kind of made decision when you don't immediately put the finger up, right? Anyway.
Yes.
Anderson continues, outside off, left alone, a little bit back of a length, no run.
But you haven't indicated why you didn't give it out. So in that sort of circumstance, yes, it's hit him outside leg, but Archer may not have been 100% certain. Was that not given because the umpire thought he got an edge to it, or was it not given because he thought it hit outside the line of leg or pitched outside? Which probably changes your decision-making somewhat if you know one of those pieces of information.
Yeah, I guess. In this case, it really was just whether or not it pitched outside leg, and in fact it did.
And it would have been a terrible review as a result.
Yeah. You know what terrible review it reminded me of?
Which one?
Pat Cummins to Jack Leach in the third to last over at Headingley last year.
Ah, yes. Yes, when they Hail Mary'd a review because we had one and then probably needed it later.
Probably needed it later. If he'd used it later, he would have won the game.
Yeah.
Anderson has bowled another couple of deliveries and so I'll be rabbiting on. This one is on middle stump and it's defended once again. No runs. We've had 16 balls. No runs scored off the bat yet. West Indies 2-0. Couple of questions coming in. Why the hate for VJ?
I'm not going to get into that one.
Fair enough. And no Gully for Anderson could be a mistake. Maybe he is not going to do a batsman in for bounce. Not if he's bowling full. It's kind of not what he's going for right now. He does have a wide-ish second slip, and he's got a sort of a square point fielder. It's fairly short, so Gully is fairly superfluous with this kind of a field.
Yeah, I think that backward point fielder is almost an exceptionally square gully.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair that you wouldn't be expecting Anderson. Yeah, that point fielder is a long way behind. It's a deep gully. It's a really deep gully. Yeah, I wouldn't be expecting Anderson to be the guy to be taking the shoulder of the bat.
Oh, down leg.
Don't often see that from him.
Well, it's the first one that's really gone awry so far in Anderson's spell today. But nonetheless, he doesn't concede from it. 3 overs gone, 2-0. What comments have we got in the thread, I wonder? Flem says that Archer always looks so aggrieved. He does have that kind of, what? kind of look on his face sometimes. Shaking his head. OS says, how's the pitch play today? We haven't seen anything keep low or anything weird, but it's partly because And now we've got runs. One on the pads for the left-hander from Archer. They're going to have to reset because it's conceded a single. West Indies 3 for none.
Yeah, I don't think we saw too much out of the West Indies bowlers that indicated how the pitch was playing either way. We've seen the one ball from Archer just last over that kicked a touch to take the shoulder of the bat, but it's played pretty normally so far. One ball that maybe kept a little bit low as well, but I think that was more the batsman, the old Tendulkar, make it look low than actually keeping significantly low.
Yeah. Mark Wood wasn't able to make head or tail of what was going on out there.
No.
That one is on middle stump, and it's flicked away quite admirably by Craig Braithwaite. It will be stopped just before it reaches the boundary, and so they'll presumably take 2.
Good chase out there by Crawley.
3, in fact, as West Indies progress to 6 for no wicket. Archer is, I think he was straining for that Yorker there and turned into a bit of a middle stump half volley.
That was actually a lot closer to short leg than I thought it was. HB, Archer trying to bounce out these batsmen might help Anderson catch one lead-footed at the other end.
No, new ball.
I don't think that's the go-to tactic for Archer with the new ball.
Certainly not yet.
Yeah.
That one's outside off. That's a good delivery. Perhaps slightly shorter than it needs to be as it goes past the outside edge, 87 miles an hour. But that's the line he's got to take. That's what we're after.
It's a very good line.
Seen a few good balls so far. These are the wicket-taking deliveries. Yep. And it moved, didn't it? Seemed away a little bit.
Yeah. And he's quite well bowled.
Campbell, this time the left-handed Campbell, back on strike to Archer, and he gets a full one, and it squirts out towards gully for no run. And Archer is perhaps trying to do a little bit too much here.
Yeah, I think so. I think so much of Archer's danger is in what he has the potential to do without you expecting it. Mm-hmm. And I think because he does those things fairly often, you lose that kind of fear value of, is this going to be the one?
Yeah. Resumes again. That one's slightly shorter, slightly tighter. It's defended off the back foot, no run. Which is probably why I miss Stuart Broad in this game, because I can see what Archer is trying to do, and I would rather he just hit that length, maybe pinch it up a little bit, get the 4-stump line involved, and against these West Indies batsmen, you'd probably pick up a few.
Yeah, I think Barani's right in the comments that the backward short leg for Braithwaite seems to be there more for the fend than the flick, which I think is completely right. Because to me, from what I've seen of Archer, his main weapon, particularly to right-handers, is the fact that when he goes short, the short ball really comes in and follows you. So it's really it's quite a mental block to get over, I suppose, of going, if he bowls short, it's coming straight at me. Mm-hmm. Whereas some other bowlers, their short ball is just a short ball, whereas Archer's really feels like it follows you. So having the guy there and keeping it in the back of the mind is a really powerful attacking weapon, I think. But it means that you need to bowl really, really disciplined in between trying to use it, rather than bowling a length ball, then bowling a Yorker, then bowling a bouncer, then bowling another length ball and cycling through.
Stephen asked why are they playing Test 2 and 3 at Old Trafford, if that's correct. It's because, my understanding at least, is that they changed it to the Rose Bowl and Old Trafford because those are the 2 grounds with the best secure environments that they could help keep the players as safe as possible in during the outbreak. They are also the grounds with the newest facilities, because the Rose Bowl is very new. It's just the newest ground overall. It's also the biggest ground for that reason. And Old Trafford quite recently been redeveloped. They've got that new quasi pavilion, which I've been calling the toaster. It's not just about the players; it's also about the facilities for like broadcasters and ground staff and everything. So I think they've organised it with all that stuff in mind.
Yeah.
Why they decided to go with 2 grounds rather than 1, I don't know. Probably something contractual.
Entirely possible. Could be that Old Trafford was the first choice, but they couldn't get it for these days or whatever, for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that a test series loses something by having multiple tests kind of at the one ground or being really concentrated in single locations?
It makes it harder to talk about. It makes it hard to refer to what happened where. It's much
True.
easier to say, look at the way he bowled at Southampton than look at the way he bowled in the first test. So
Yeah.
I would like to be able to say, at Manchester, such and such happened. And I can't say that in this series. I have to specify a second or third test, which also means whether I have to remember that it happened in the second or third test. So the only thing I think it loses is that sort of cricketing vernacular, really. What it would lose if there were fans is that it wouldn't be fair, and you would need to like the point of a test series is to sort of take it around the country a bit and get everyone a chance to everyone a reasonable chance to go see it. We're having a bit of a break in play at the moment while we examine. It's all apparently come from that LBW shout where someone was yorked.
Right.
I think he's going off.
It appears so.
Campbell has taken his boots off and he's being escorted off the pitch. Well, this is a. He's been retired hurt, 1 off 11. Well, West Indies would presume that that's going to be a short-term thing. They would certainly hope so because 1 down with 6 on the board is not in any way what they want. It is, as an England fan, kind of hoping that he can't bat anymore, but I hope he's not too badly hurt, genuinely. That said, if he can't bat anymore, Archer should probably get a wicket. Shai Hope, 2 test centuries at Headingley in 2017. Amazing performance, won them the game. Absolutely almost nothing since then. 15, 14 runs at an average of 27.
Yep.
I remember after the first test in that 2017 series where the West Indies were absolutely mullered, there was a lot of very, I don't want to say arrogant because it wasn't really bigging up England, it was more just rude talk about the West Indies not being good enough for test cricket, which was mad because, in the 2015 series they'd won a test and they continually play fairly well against England. Anderson is going to bowl into Brathwaite's pads slightly. He's going to get another single. Anyway, then Headingley happened, and Hope and Brathwaite batted fantastically well, especially Hope, and they were able to deliver the game. And then after that, in the third test, I remember people like talking about Shai Hope as though Brian Lara was coming into bat. Like it was an amazing sort of vault face over the single result and saying pair of innings. Really does wind me up a little bit when people completely go against everything they've said without a hint of recognizing what's happened to change your mind.
There's often a lot of knee-jerk that responds from one great test.
That's what I'm looking for, yeah. In any case, Hope has continued. I think most of his success, to be fair, in the last 3 years has come in one-day cricket. I think he's been a reasonably effective player opening the batting in one-dayers.
Yes, he absolutely has. It seems like since he got good at one-day cricket, he hasn't quite been able to stack together the test results.
Mm-hmm. Anderson will continue. He's into his 3rd over at the moment. That one's a good better ball, but it's well read. Didn't get too much movement away, and it's defended.
There's certainly a lot to like about Hope. I mean, the fact that he could have a test like that previous Headingley one is indicative that there's at least something about him. You don't have a test like that without being some degree of good. But he certainly hasn't performed the way the West Indies would have wanted him to, which really hurts them.
Yeah, because
with the state of their batting lineup and Darren Bravo being consistently unavailable. Hetmeyer unavailable for this series.
Although I'm not convinced that Hetmeyer is an enormous amount of a loss in the long
I
form
mean,
of the game.
I think he's at the very least a moderate upgrade on Jermaine 8,000 runs Blackwood.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll concede that.
Also, how dare you talk down a member of the Edgbaston Taps?
Oh, of course. I'd forgotten we traded him.
Yes.
He's not the only member of the Edgbaston Taps I'll talk down. Full ball from Anderson is defended off the front foot, fairly awkwardly, but without loss. West Indies are 7 for none. What's his name? What's his name? The Pakistani all-rounder who doesn't take any wickets.
Let's not go there.
Zoeb, I want to say Zoeb Ikram, something like that.
Khan, but yeah.
Zoeb Khan. What's he been doing lately?
Presumably not much.
No. Open another tab and find out. I want to know what's up with Zoeb Khan. As Anderson comes in to finish his over. Defended, no run in West Indies, 7 for none after 5.
Sign into Cricket Archive.
Tricia points out that travel restrictions due to COVID is probably a factor in only doing 2 tests. Sorry, only doing 2 grounds with 3 tests, which is probably true. But if there were travel restrictions, why 2 grounds instead of 1? Who knows? We're seeing Anderson's pitch map, which is full and pretty consistent. He's been much more consistent than Jofra Archer, who's tried stuff, whereas Anderson is just trying to pitch it on that fullish good area and try and move it away.
Targeting the area.
It's a really good pitch map from Anderson, actually. And that's the one that moves.
Zohab Khan's 2019-20 first-class season.
Please.
528 runs at 88.
Oh, excellent. Any wickets?
His previous season, 536 runs at 53.6.
Fair enough. He's batting well. Is that kind of the... is that the Steve Smith kind of averaging 88 or the Steve Waugh kind of averaging 88?
It's the 7 not outs in 13 innings kind of averaging 88.
Fair enough. All right, so he's still, doing well. What about any wickets?
Number 7 who doesn't get out.
Okay, and does he take wickets?
Let me check his bowling for you. No.
Okay.
2018-19, 12 wickets at 25, then 7 at 65 last year. But last year was particularly batsman friendly.
All right, never mind. Archer is bowling now. Outside off, that's more of the Anderson kind of line and length, but it doesn't move, and so it's left alone. As we see people shining the ball. No spit allowed. Have you played any cricket this season?
No. So we are still in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've been quite lucky in that our season won't be affected too bad.
There it is.
That's brilliant.
Archer goals on exactly the same spot as the previous delivery, the one that didn't move, except this one manages to come in off the seam, and that's exactly the way that Dom Sibley was dismissed on the very first morning. That is goaled him. It's bowled him.
Yep, that's a very valuable wicket.
And it's played on, actually.
Yeah, it's played on, feet go nowhere.
And it's roamed off his heel into the wickets. Just needed a little bit of movement to get it onto the inside edge of the bat, and Craig Braithwaite is out. 4 bowled Archer. West Indies 7 for 1.
Brumby in the thread. Braithwaite never looked comfortable out there. Lovely length from Jofra up there attacking stumps. Yeah, I think he needs to focus on that length.
Yeah, and not try and
it will be dangerous.
And bowling full doesn't mean the hero Yorker either. Although by all means, if you're going to bowl someone with a hero Yorker, I do enjoy that as well. But no, he just needs to. Anderson at the other end was showing how it's done, right?
Yeah. This England attack is good enough to bowl the West Indies out for 200 if they just keep bowling good balls in good spots and don't try to overthink it and don't try to blast them out for 12.
That's true. Although I think the West Indies batting is, even if it's fairly shaky, it's good enough to keep out the likes of Archer and Wood if they don't bowl up to speed. Wood,
Yes.
if he bowls at 80 miles an hour, which he was doing for large parts of this game, is a very mediocre looking bowler. And the whole reason he's been picked is to bowl fast. So if Wood isn't bowling fast, he doesn't need to be here. So we'll see what happens with him, much like we kind of see what happens when Joss Butler walks into bat. It's kind of where we're at with him. But this is a little bit worrying for the West Indies because they might be both openers down.
Yeah, it's certainly not the start you want with your number 3 and number 4 out here within the first 20 minutes or so of the innings.
And that will be the first delivery, which rises a little bit, climbs on Brooks. And that's out. We had to do a bit of reconnaissance on the first day when we were commentating to find out who half these West Indies batsmen are. We've seen a little bit of them, mostly on the third day of this test match. Brooks is probably the least accomplished.
Yes.
He's coming out at number 4 nonetheless.
They've certainly cycled through a few batsmen over the past little while.
Bouncer from Archer. I'm guessing that the next one's going to be full.
Well, that's the end of his over, so I don't think there'll be another full one for a couple of minutes yet.
All right, okay, fine. You know the other thing that's difficult about umpiring?
Counting to 6.
Absolutely. I read about this and I did not believe people who had posted on forums and social media and other things. The most difficult thing is going to be consistently counting to 6 without help.
Yep.
And I didn't believe that. I umpired 2 games and I immediately ordered one of those little thumb clickers because it's so true. You're concentrating on so much that you completely have no idea how many deliveries it's been.
We need to get Zorax back for a discussion about how hard umpiring is.
There's a very good chance he'll be on in the afternoon, but we're still working on that.
Yeah.
Pothos suggests that speed gun should be banned when Archer is bowling. I don't know if that's because, it puts paid to a couple of myths about Archer or whether it just makes him feel sad.
Yeah, so when I look at Archer bowling, I can't tell the difference between him bowling an 82 mile an hour ball and him bowling an 86 mile an hour ball. Like, they look completely identical.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of... There are times where he can bowl at like 86, 87 and look rapid, and there are times where it just looks floaty. There's a bit of early Stark about him in that respect, from what I've seen. Some spells it's 87 miles an hour and the quickest thing you've ever seen. Other times it's 87 miles an hour and just more pace to use to drive for 4.
It's not a tremendous endorsement. Yes, I'd really rather not have Mitchell Stark. I feel like as much as great an asset that would be to the one-day team, I think England can probably go one better in whites, or at least they should hope to.
I'd slot him into this attack.
I think so, just because this attack is not quite what we need right now, and also his left arm counts for a lot. I think Sam Curran has been playing probably a little bit more prematurely than he should do on the basis that he's a left-armer. So Mitchell Stark by all means. But yeah, a right-arm Mitchell Stark is probably not something I'd go praying for.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Harsh says, haha, it's played on actually. I don't know whether he's just commenting on the cricket or I just screwed up the commentary, but we'll find out.
I think he's quoting you there.
Yeah. No.
Flem in the thread. West Indian batting starts at Chase and ends with Holder, TBH.
That's not true. Dowrich is an effective player.
Yeah, well, Chase, Dowrich, Holder being the three he's referring to there, I suppose.
Oh, sorry. Starts at Chase and ends with Holder. Yeah, fair enough.
I think it's a classic New Zealand take of the only thing that matters is the engine room, and I think he's actually got a bit of a point with the West Indies. Their engine room is quite good.
It is very New Zealandish a team, isn't it? If you imagine Roston Chase is like Dan Vettori, and Jason Holder is like, I don't know. Well, actually, Jason Holder is their Vettori, and Roston Chase is more like their sort of Aurum. This is a very Kiwi-ish side, isn't it? With the dodgy openers and the decent pace attack.
Where you get they play 8 bowlers because Andy Ellis and Todd Astle are just as good as their next best batsman anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they just collapse to 5 for nothing, and then
then
400 every game.
Right, and then you work like buggery to get through the lower middle order, and then who's this? Oh, it's another all rounder who averages more than the openers. Oh, okay.
Yep.
So yeah, if we were in the situation where Alzari Joseph averages like 30 in first class cricket, then that would be bang on. Archer is continuing his 4th over of the day, this time against Brooks, who's yet to get off the mark. Hope is also yet to get off the mark. Hope's on 0 of 11.
This is a story that will probably entertain about 2.2 people, none of whom are listening. But
is it going to entertain me?
Possibly.
All right,
because
go for
it would be glad I didn't use it for Edgbaston Taps purposes.
Okay.
I was trying to do some of my research that came up with such great things as pick Zohaib Khan. I tried to kind of how do I standardize some averages because I've got way too much time in Excel. And I ran some numbers and tried to weight different domestic competitions and vice versa and all sorts of things. And I accidentally came out with a system where Alzari Joseph was the 5th best batsman in the world.
That's tremendous. We have just seen Jimmy Anderson flagrantly ignoring the no saliva on a ball rule, by the way.
And what penalty will there be?
I expect it will be either a portion of his match fee or nothing at all.
That's a celeb repeal. Jofra he's an adequate broad replacement. That's direct at Tino.
He just ran off. That is a wicket though. Brooks never looked like he was happy in the 5 balls that he was at the crease. And really, West Indies are in all sorts of trouble now. 7 for 2. One of their top order has a hurt foot, and Jofra Archer is making it happen.
Yep, Archer is bowling the way that he should bowl all the time.
I mean, that's exactly what we were saying in his first couple of overs, wasn't it? It was a slightly fuller than good length. Trust your seam position and your pitch to do the rest.
Yeah. Trust your ability as trust being a fast bowler, not being a talented cricketer, I suppose.
Yeah. And Shamar Brooks is out for 0. It's nearly 7 for 2. I'm so sorry that interrupted your Excel story.
I feel like Jofra Archer getting a plum leg before wicket dismissal is significantly more important. But yeah, the summary of that is that Joseph had made a couple of not out 50s and was averaging 70 in the most recent West Indies domestic comp as a result.
Right.
And my scaling therefore made him the 5th best batsman in the world.
I mean, it's really interesting to do stuff like this. I know that some people who are Lord Demimsey Porpington or whatever you want to call himself is sat there huffing. That's what they sound like when they say things like statistics are complete nonsense and you just need to use your eyes and things like that. No, then the point is that you recognize what interesting things can come out of that, and you kind of see what's going on in a bit more of a different perspective. It is something that is valuable to at least have a think about, if as an exercise, if nothing else. Switch your brain on. Don't be such a Philistine.
we're getting the Hawkeye replay showing that is quite possibly the most plumb LBW we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a straight ball, isn't it? It doesn't actually. It maybe there's a little bit of inward shape there, but there's nothing like demonstrably amazing about it. He just missed a straight one.
Yeah, pretty much. There's not a whole lot where you look at it and go, that should have taken a wicket.
Yeah, but if you bowl that, ball.
But a test class bat, you should keep it out.
Yeah, but if you're bowling that ball 5 times and over against somebody who's not confident and hasn't got a bat on ball yet, he's going to miss one.
That's tennis balled over everyone.
Yeah, you're a little bit ahead of me. If you'd like to go on the ball by ball, it's going to go for 4 byes or 4 wides.
That's gone for 5 wides. That has kept going up.
Didn't seem particularly short. Oh, it was really short. Never mind. It was in his. It was in Archer's half.
That's another good one. Beats him outside off. Slightly slower. Draws in probably more of an aggressive drive than warranted for that ball.
Mm-hmm. Stephen suggests that West Indies starting their batting at 5 is not unlike the English team, and he has a salient point. Holder like Cairns. I think Holder is too much of a bowler and a bit too good for that, but he'll take it.
So Archer with another slightly short of a length ball, but it comes back in a little bit to be defended out to the offside.
Dobson also suggests that ICC stated there would not be any punishment for saliva initially while everybody gets used to it. I think that's probably fair enough. If you've played 150 test matches, putting your spit on the ball to shine it, it's probably a bit hardwired, isn't it?
Yeah. Arch goes for the miracle ball, the middle and leg stump Yorker that's squeezed out to mid-wicket for no run. It'd be nice if he just bowled 4 length balls in a row.
But, he's the one with 2 for 9, so maybe we should shut up.
True. He's 2 for 9 from when he's bowled 4 length balls in a row.
I'll be interested to see if chat can provide us with any updates on what happened to Campbell. Because whether or not he can bat in this test is probably going to be significant with the West Indies 2 down early.
Yes.
If it's
12 for 2, potentially 12 for 3,
yeah,
it's a long way back whether you've got that batsman or not.
I think we might be in the unfortunate situation of having him come in like at 7 down or something, just before the real tailenders come in. Just as a seeing go out there and bat without running kind of scenario. Talk of the devil, he's here on the stand with his feet up.
Anderson in, pretty standard length ball. Hope plays an expansive drive for nothing. As we now see Stuart Broad walking around.
Anderson is 0 for 1 off 4.1 overs, but as we've just seen there, he's not bowling too wide and not making them play. Like, he has made them defend and play. He's just not quite got that that ball that moves precisely the right amount to kiss the edge like he's aiming for.
Yeah, the West Indies just haven't found a way to quite get going as of yet. Part of it's good bowling. I wonder if part of it's the pitch. But even when the bad balls have come, they haven't been able to do huge amounts to them.
Mm-hmm. There's been a couple down leg, but nothing significant.
And what?
Flem274 is pointing out that he wishes Key, meaning Rob Key, on Sky Commentary, would just stop. He won't stop. You'll have to listen to us. That said, I think Rob Key is perfectly acceptable.
Why aren't you listening to Howe and Dan with the delayed comms?
Ah, so he does.
And Hope has just squeezed one through the offside field. It didn't look like the most elegant cover drive of his career, but he's got it out to that square boundary.
Yeah, nice bit of follow
Right,
through with the
ball
square drive.
inside out.
I think Honest Brani points out fairly accurately that Pope looks like Bell with his sunglasses and cap on. Certainly early career Bell, kind of 2005-ish Bell, with the slightly curly ginger locks.
The similarities are uncanny between them in pretty much every sense.
I'm hoping that he comes online a bit sooner than 4 years in Test cricket than like Bell did, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So one thing that I did catch earlier in this Test match was Pope's first innings 12. And I thought it was quite a good 12. It was right. I was glad he didn't make 9 because he'd never have the world's greatest 9.
No.
But I think he'd have one of the best 12s I've ever seen.
Well, that's encouraging for him. He batted just so well in South Africa. He's only really got that one series behind him, but it was enough to draw some pretty strong
Hopefully
praise.
Another one through the field there. Showing some intent against Anderson. Not too much wrong with the ball. You wouldn't say it was a half volley or inherently drivable. Maybe just a fraction full, but he's placed it very nicely.
Yeah. And these are the first real runs Anderson conceded. He tried an off-cutter. I'm not sure why. We haven't really seen any life out of the pitch yet, despite West Indies batting for the best part of, 3/4 of an hour now.
Oh, that zipped through a little more. Hope intelligently chooses not to play his cover drive again.
Well, he's got 2 boundaries in the over, right? So
yes,
that's normally the point where if somebody takes a single, then the commentary team is absolutely honor bound to say that, oh, that's really good batting. If you get a boundary and then immediately a single, you have to say it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's one of those laws of cricket.
West Indies 20 for 2 after, I think, 9 overs. Some more people are saying, where can you listen to Howe and Dan? Can I have a commentary link? Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Archer's back, bowling back of a length slightly. Are you ahead of me?
Yeah, I just missed that ball.
All right, well, there you go then.
I tried to time it as well as I could, but your stream seems to be jumping around from behind to before me.
Wow.
Occasionally. That one just kind of plays a little bit wide going on with the arm. Decent pace though, through to the keeper with not much happening.
I expect these guys will try and play for lunch soon. So Ben Stokes has got to start thinking about a bowling change.
25 minutes away. Yeah, I'd consider Wood for Anderson and just tell him you've got 2, maybe 3 overs of just try and blast him out at 95 mile an hour. Mm-hmm. Or I'd consider going to Bess.
I think Bess has got to have at least try and get a spell, but we do have 2 right-handers.
Yes.
So it might not be quite the time.
Yeah, you're not going to get the turning away, but it'd be interesting to see what he can do, kind of, because he bowls with a fair bit of overspin at times, not line levels or anything, but he gets a bit of it, whether he can do something kind of into that hip sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking back to, I think it was a dismissal that Lyon had against Pryor back in the 2013 Ashes, which is a weird place to go back to, where he just got it to turn into the thigh pad, edge, glove, pad to short leg.
I can't say that I've memorized every dismissal like that, but I will be happy to take your word for it.
Gets a few of them. So I don't think it's the ideal time for best, for sure. I think you definitely want the ball to be turning away. But I think it's probably worth giving him a couple of overs before lunch and seeing if anything happens. See how much the pitch is going, I suppose.
Chase is off the mark with a couple squirted into the offside betwixt the fielders. I'm going to go ahead and quote this for posterity. Trisha says, not going to lie, you two are providing some of the best cricket commentary, nay, sports commentary in general, I've ever heard.
Thanks for the kind words. That's certainly encouraging.
And I know that she's not being sarcastic because she's American.
Commentary, I feel like the bar's quite low. Particularly when it's attached to a visual. I don't think we'd be up there with a lot of the radio comms, but
we're doing as best. What I like about that is that she's not being sarcastic because she's American. Couple more runs.
Yep.
After 10 overs, West Indies 24 for 2. And we've seen camera shots in the ground suggesting that the TV commentators are also thinking about Mark Wood because he's being profiled. Stephen points out there's only right-handers from here on in the West Indies lineup, so never mind that theorem. He's got to get used. Besser's got to come on at some point and get used to it because that's what the rest of the game's going to be like.
I've clearly been doing a lot of my research.
Mm-hmm.
I'm channeling my inner sort of Mark Taylor, Mark Waugh commentary where you don't bother doing any reading about anyone who's not Australian.
It seems like it's the traditional way of doing commentary. You just turn up and expect people to deal with it, and
you get what you get.
It's also a genuine point for a moment, rather than just bitching, would be to suggest that when you get a pundit that's a very recent ex-player, like they've just been, they've only just retired, like the previous summer or something, and so the TV channel gets them in to be, to have a sense of continuity. That commentator usually does pretty well. Not just because they can talk to you about the tactics that are currently going on, because they know a thing or two about it, because they were just in the team a few months ago, but also because they feel like they're supposed to do a good job. That's what I think is happening, like they're trying. Whereas somebody like Shane Warne, who's been doing it for 10 years and has always been terrible and no one's called him on it because he's Shane Warne, just doesn't try anymore.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a point where some commentators get a little bit complacent with, I'm a commentator now, I just show up and I'm good enough to do it on the spot kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of those guest commentators or recent players will go, I'm not a commentator, I've got to try to look the part.
And if you're Jeffrey Boycott, then you spend your time in the commentary not only saying, I'm a commentator and I'm an analyzer, so you should shut up and listen to me, you can also say it very directly to Jonathan Agnew because you don't think he was a good bowler. Which is, it happens.
Yeah.
I think Boyks is finished now, which is probably for the best. Anderson is halfway through his 6th over. No runs so far in this over, as he's bowling quite a tight line, a little bit tighter than he was in his first few overs, trying to cramp Shy Hope for room perhaps, or he's just trying to get it moving in and out again. Yeah, we're showing the tests in England 2017 for Hope. 15 and 4, 147 and 118 not out, amazing. And then a couple of 20s in the third test.
So that's an interesting ball there. So Anderson's bowled slightly short of a length outside off. Hope's just kind of bunted it to what seemed to be a deep third man coming in. I don't quite understand why that fielding position's there. Anderson's bowling for Hope to 2 slips, as we see Best warming up. A couple of balls after Hope has shown that he's happy to drive him. I think that's not the way I would have gone with it. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why they've got a deep backward point who's not quite a third man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have minded putting a third, maybe even a third in the gully into Anderson to Hope there and said, if you want to cover drive me, go for it. Prove that you're good enough. If you get a couple more away, good for you. If you don't, all of a sudden you're effectively 4 for 30.
Could it be a plan specifically for Chase? Like, is they trying to cut off a late cut Is that a thing he likes to
He
do?
was there for Hope before, though, because he got his single down there.
Yeah, it seems a fairly superfluous position.
As Hope bunts one out to point and takes one as the fielder comes around.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be playing for lunch fairly shortly, so run saving probably shouldn't be in the mind.
Harsh has put the big call of a couple of overs of Denley before lunch. That would be quite remarkable if you had Joe Denley at first change.
There's a universe in which Joe Denley comes on and takes 6 wickets and wins this game. Suggest
True.
In that universe, would you still want Denley on the team? Because I would suggest that Denley is kind of on a hiding to nothing here. Firstly, Joe Root is going to come back in, and Zach Crawley is just top scored for England. And he's favoured by the selectors even more than the runs he scores, because he doesn't really score runs domestically. And here he is batting at 4 for England, scoring 76. Joe Root's going to come back in and bat at either 3 or 4, but almost certainly 4. He also probably bowls just as well, if not a little bit better than Joe Denley as well.
Yeah, I don't think in this team Joe Denley's bowling should really be a factor in his selection, because if that was the case, like he's literally David Milan, and you've swapped one goodish but one county journeyman with some goodish recent numbers for another county journeyman with some goodish recent numbers, and it doesn't really point towards anything in the future. He's done a good job in his role, Denley, but I certainly don't think he is a long-term solution or anything, or even a medium-term solution.
Mark Wood's bowling. Eyes on the speed gun, I guess.
Yeah, I don't mind this, especially from the point of view of not bowling Archer into the ground.
And not bowling Mark Wood into the ground, because he's only going to have a couple of overs here before lunch.
Yeah. I think that's one real weakness in Joe Root's captaincy, is that he's been so reliant on, I guess, before Archer arrived, both Broad and Anderson bowling quite long spells and soaking up a lot of overs, that there's been the attempt to do the same with Archer, and I don't think he's quite suited to it. I don't think that's where you want to use him.
That was a common criticism in the Ashes, that Archer was bowling too much. I think if Archer was bowling shorter spells and taking fewer wickets as a result, probably would have been criticised for that too. It does seem as that, to me at least, my ears, that the England captain just gets criticised, and that's just kind of how you do things.
That's a fair point. So that one's bunted out to the deep point for a single. I
will suggest that in South Africa, where England had a almost completely different attack in every game, partly due to selection and partly due to injuries, where often the best bowler in the previous game was no longer playing in this one. And Joe Root managed to deliver 3 victories away from home with a very ramshackle side that was just beginning to kind of be put together. I think is a large amount of credit goes to Joe Root for being able to shape that attack that was a different attack in every game into 3 wins away from
home. I'm just going to cut in on you right there, because apparently Hope is about to be bowled by Wood. We've been told in the live comments.
Oh, sod off, Melbourne. Honestly. I mean, I'm very pleased about Hope bowled Wood, and I'm looking forward to seeing it on screen.
Let's see how it happens. Sometimes I wonder if it's more interesting to kind of know ahead of time and then analyse. Oh, that's actually quite a good ball.
You're seeing it about 10 seconds before me.
That has nipped back really nicely. It's not excessively quick, but it is nipped back off the seam quite nicely. It's not played brilliantly by Hope, but with that movement off the seam, it's not unforgivable or anything. Fold off his thigh.
I mean, there's a little bit of a nice tingly warm feeling when a fast bowler makes a stump go pegged back, isn't it? He's not just clipped the bail off
Yeah.
there. Off stubs are gone. Lovely.
So,
And it's Archer and
27
Wood taking all
three.
the wickets after I spent about 20 minutes ranting about picking them this morning. Shai Hope's gone for 9.
He looked okay for a lot of that 9 as well. He's just
on a scale of 1 to Quiney, in which Quiney represents obviously 9, how good was that 9? He hit 2 boundaries through the offside and didn't really do anything else, in my opinion.
Look, I don't think it was Rob Quiney level 9, but it was decent. It was enough. It's the kind of thing where you don't drop him for it. Because you go, there's enough there that tells me he's good enough to play cricket at test level, but he just doesn't deliver.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're about to see
Jermaine Blackwood, right?
6,700 runs coming soon, I think, because he's got to get to that career 8,000.
1,374 runs at an average of just under 30. I think it was just over 30 at the start of the game for Jermaine Blackwood.
There's a long way to his 8,000th.
It's a long way to go, but we'll see how. I guess he's probably going to go out of the team as soon as Bravo and Hetmeyer are available again, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect him to be... Like, he was on a pretty significant break before this tour, where his only recent game was as a concussion sub.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he was on the right island at the time. I don't see a long-term future for him in the team at this point, unless something strange happens. Brooks has probably shown just enough for you to go. He's probably ahead of Blackwood. And there's probably, between Hetmeyer and Bravo coming back, you'd say that he's not your first choice top 5 batsman.
Mm-hmm. It might be moot if Campbell is injured. But
correct.
We don't know what the results of that are yet, but if it is, then it's 27 for 4. Ouch. And England are right on top in this game now, aren't they? I don't know what kind of odds you would give, what percentage odds you would give of chasing 200 at this stage, but I think West Indies are starting to see this slip away from them a little bit.
I think that just showed WinViz before, but I didn't pay any attention to it. It showed a lot of blue. That's quite a decent shout, actually.
I think it's too high. Off my first impression.
At 27 for 4, I wouldn't be burning a review on it. 27 for 3, possibly 4. I wouldn't be going a review on it, but it's not the world's worst shout.
I expect this will be if they review it, then I expect it would be umpire's call with the ball just sort of hitting the edge of leg bail.
That being said, we saw the LBW given in the first innings against, was it Brathwaite? Where he was hit on the thigh pad and it was shown to just be clipping the stumps and he was out as a result.
Yeah. I mean, if you get that as a batsman, it's a marginal decision, but you can't moan about it because it's still hitting the wickets. But at the same time, you can't really expect them to be given.
Yeah, that they've just shown the Hawkeye for it. And this is
umpire's call.
And the Hawkeye for it is a very umpire's call.
Yeah. I think they changed umpire's call, didn't they? Because it used to be that there were times when basically the middle of the ball could be hitting the middle of leg stump and they would still give it umpire's call. Or
I think
as near as makes no difference, and you'd get them and you just felt as a bowling side, if he's not got his stupid fat leg in the way, that's hammering the stumps out of the ground.
Yep.
That's the point of LBW. Give me the LBW, Jesus. But now they have changed it a bit, so it has to be like a genuine clip to be on.
Just to run through some comments on the stream as Bess comes in and gets a bit of turn that first ball.
Ooh.
Takes some, not quite worth a shout or anything, but promising signs. So we've got HB saying that if Campbell is injured, De Silva for the next game as an opener, which is the point that I was going to make.
Almost certainly true. Made 100 in the team v team game.
And given that this is a West Indies side that has picked Rajendra Chandrika in the past, anyone's up, comedy run out? No.
Chandrika, he was garbage.
Chandrika was quite possibly one of the worst Test match batsmen I've ever seen, and I apologise to him for that because it wasn't his fault that he was picked for Tests, but he did not deserve to be there. I'm still a little bit concerned that Australia let him make a 30. Stephen has said Bess is only 22, quite young for a spinner, which is very true. Which makes me think there's still quite a bit of upside for him because there's a lot of career to go.
Yeah, he might end up being a batsman.
Yeah, so there's more and more talk of him leaving Somerset, which would be quite disappointing because he's been great for Somerset, and I think everyone wants to see him stay. And they don't want to be in another Butler and Keyswetter situation where they end up losing both with him and Leach. Probably if Leach ends up with a sustained run in the side. But if he stayed with Somerset, you'd expect him to have to become a number 7 who can also bowl and kind of...
And then by the time he's 32, he might not be bowling altogether.
Yeah, I don't think he's quite a Borthwick situation or a Steve Smith situation. He's
definitely not as good as Steve Smith. Steve Smith was hitting hundreds in the Shield when he was 19.
Yeah, but he's a pretty handy lower order batsman that you could see converting to a reasonable 7, possibly a first class 6.
Tricia, I would suggest that Chandrika was probably not worse a batsman than Chris Martin, but he did open the batting for a Test nation, which perhaps the standards are somewhat different.
I will clarify my previous comments. The worst Test match batsman that I've seen picked for the purposes of their batting. And keep in mind how little cricket I've watched quite recently, and that I don't have extensive historical cricket.
It's fine. There's been nobody worse than Chandrika. Yeah.
Maybe early career Imral Kayes, but he came back and actually did something this second stint in the team. Wood's back on, and he's bowling short and into the hip, which is not where you want your bounce to go, and he's been worked away for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be properly short or right up there.
Bit of a squirt.
Yep.
All right.
Trisha, I just like to make fun of Chris Martin at any opportunity, which is fair enough.
Did you see his Learn to Bat Like Chris Martin video?
Oh, it's outstanding. It's quite possibly the greatest cricket-related video on YouTube.
Gets like Chris, it's out now. Best. Anyway, Brumby suggested
that I assume OS has said Chandrika's Test career overlapped with the West Indies shunting Chanderpaul into retirement, which only made his presence in the team even more galling.
Is that true? That's shocking.
I mean, a 42-year-old Shiv Chanderpaul would probably have been a better Test match opener than Chandrika turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, Shiv Chanderpaul would probably do an all right job now. He never seemed to. He never gave you the impression of a batsman who had high energy. You don't think he was a young man's player, did you?
But then he would randomly come out and smash 100 off 60 balls against the best side in the world. And then the following game, bat in the bubble and just make 100 off 300 balls. One of the greatest things I've seen recently was during, I think, his last season with Lancashire.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get picked in the county side or a one-day side or whatever. So he's off on a second 11 game, 3-day second 11 game. So he rocks up to a second 11 game in the middle of nowhere, playing against all of these guys who've got probably 3 first-class games to the name across the entirety of the team. And he comes in at number 5, and he makes 100 off about 300 balls. Like, he just bats in his bubble, and it's like you'd expect a Test match player who averaged close to 50 in Test match cricket to, maybe go out and blast a ton. No, 300 balls. Doesn't matter what you put in front of Shiv Chanderpaul, you get exactly the same thing.
Wood has been bowling I want to say 2 straight, but really just 2 leg side. And Chase is able to bung a couple into the leg side. As some cameramen try to touch hands, but they have a screen between them, like lovers, where one of them is in prison. It's quite sweet, really.
Outstanding description. And Wood bowls 2 short and 2 leg side again and concedes a leg bye. Here we go. I've found the scorecard. Shiv Chandapur, 111 not out off 263.
Mm-hmm. He was always very like unasked. One of the reasons he was quite poor with batting with the tail is that he didn't really care if they got out or not. Just did his own thing.
We've had a request for the Chris Martin batting video link.
Oh, I don't know. Just go on to YouTube and search how to bat like Chris Martin. It'll turn up.
I've typed how to bat like into Google, and the first one is how to bat like Steve Smith. The second one is how to bat like Chris Martin.
I mean, I'm going to choose one of those two options, and I know which one it's going to be.
Number 3 is AB de Villiers. Number 4, MS Dhoni. Number 5, Virat Tendulkar. A pro in cricket, Joe Root. Joe Root is worse than Chris Martin, confirmed.
That's how does that impact umpire's call? Who knows? That previous delivery that was 2 leg side to Chase, was able to knock 2 into. It's just been through Hawkeye, and it turns out it wasn't a bad LBW shout. Or maybe that was the leg by. In any case, we're not going to give those out. As we see what appears to be an aged comic book character sat watching with a propeller hat and a face mask. Kind of a post-apocalyptic Archie. West Indies are 31 for 3 for those of you following it at home.
Yes. Bess is in, bowls probably a fraction straight. Chase whips it just wide of the short mid-onish fieldsman. No run.
Brumby has reported in the thread that Campbell is able to bat later, apparently.
Okay, that's positive for the West Indies, but not too positive.
Chances are they're going to need him. But really, from one perspective, you could say that we're barely into the West Indies batting with Shane Dowrich yet to appear.
Yep. The West Indies batting, as Flem said earlier, starts with Chase and ends with Holder, and also has Blackwood in the middle of it, but I don't think that affects things too much.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice just to see Blackwood make 20 or 30 odd off about 12 balls in the middle of lots of dots.
I think there's a very high chance of that happening, knowing just the kind of innings that Jermaine Blackwood usually
produces.
produces.
That's gone sharply. Bess has got one to turn in quite nicely. Chase is on the back foot, missing it. Height could be an issue, may have done too much, but it could be a reasonable review here.
I think this is going to be another umpire's call just because of the bounce there. Or perhaps going slightly over the top.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It's worth a shout.
It's definitely worth a shout.
The fact that he's left it is significant as well. Of course, we can't forget. It means that, never mind on impact. If it's a no ball, then if it was a no ball, I was just going to fly over to Southampton and try and throw things at Bess.
Didn't Leach bowl one at get Smith off a no ball in the last Ashes series, and he went on to make like 3 million after being on about 100 at the time?
I believe you that he went on to make 3 million. Most of that Steve Smith innings in that series have sort of mangled in my mind into one amorphous blob of shit.
Okay, so it's hit him in line.
Doesn't matter, he's leaving it. Oh no, he did play a shot, sorry. Did he get any bat on it?
That's actually a pretty harsh umpire's call. That's one of the ones where there's a lot of bails flying as a result if there wasn't a pad in the way.
Yeah. But he's hit him above the knee roll.
Yeah. But he's a long way back, and he hasn't got up at all. I think that should be out. That should dead set be out. That is more than half of the ball hitting the bails.
Yeah, bit of a bitter pill to swallow if you're an England supporter. But
yeah. Night Prowler is commending you on your ability to guess umpire's call. I feel like at this point, just guessing umpire's call is generally quite reasonable. Like, is it absolutely plumb? No, it's umpire's call.
And it's annoying because there's no umpire's call that favours the bowlers, you know?
Well, if it's given out.
Yeah, but imagine like if it's
Yeah.
if it's
Gotcha.
given out and it's only just narrowly missing on Hawkeye, right?
Yeah.
Then that should be umpire's call for the bowlers, shouldn't it? But no, the batsman gets a reprieve if it's missing at all, according to Hawkeye. If it was fair. But, you know, it's LBW decisions, and LBW decisions have historically never been fair. They're more fair than they used to be, in all fairness. Although I'm starting to say the word fair too often now, and it doesn't sound like it's got any meaning.
Starting to lose its meaning, yes.
Yeah.
Stephen, in the comments, is this the England umpire bias? I refuse to engage with this narrative. I'm not.
It's not English umpire bias, it's world umpire bias. It exists, it's there, it's better than it used to be. I'll accept that. Lunchtime, 35 for 3.
Well, you'd certainly say England session.
Unquestionably. I think chasing 200 was kind of what I was hoping for at the start of the day, thinking about 170 ahead's not going to be enough, 200 just about might be. Probably put England very, very... didn't really put England into the lead exactly. I mean, I know it was 200 in the lead, but didn't put them ahead in the game very much. But it was enough to bowl at, and they've just come out and proved that it's actually going to be really hard work getting 200 on this pitch today.
Chasing always challenging.
That what we can say about Mark Wood, but I don't think Wood has actually bowled very well. I think England would probably still like to have Stuart Broad, but probably not Chris Wokes. We'll see what happens this afternoon. The West Indies are in some trouble, but they have most of their best batsmen, presumably, here or still to come. So it's going to be a tight one.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if I don't wake up to an England victory here, but hopefully it is quite an interesting 2 sessions here.
Indeed. And we will hopefully be back for the afternoon. I will attempt to be back for the afternoon. I think you're going to bed, is that right?
Yes, I will not be.
All right. Au revoir to Dan. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks. It's been good.
And thank you very much
for listening.